Todd, I think we're live.
We are. I just posted about it earlier this morning on LinkedIn to see who joins.
Nice. Yeah, we'll give everybody a chance to join in. We'll have to see who's popping up. But yeah, we are live.
Hello, everybody. Start checking comments, Ryan. We had a couple from our channel that I think we probably could hit up.
Oh, yeah.
Looks like we got 5 people so far. Hello, everyone.
Give people a chance to join in.
Yes, we will. We've done this many years in a row. You know that, Ryan?
Uh-oh. Lost Todd for a minute. He'll be right back.
Oh, there we go.
There he is.
Stas. Oh, no.
Look out.
Stas, the stream is for another 57 minutes. We're going to go till 1 Eastern. Good to see you, buddy. I was looking at some YouTube comments, Ryan. Maybe that's where we start.
Yeah, you got some loaded?
Yeah, we got. What's up, Lee? We got Lee here. Yeah, it is lucky for me. Thanks, Stas. Hey, good to see you, Cleon. All right, we got 10 people so far. There'll be ebbs and flows as we've done this in years past. This is our end of year sort of podcast, Ryan. How many years in a row have we done this now?
I think at least 4. Well, Rob dropped a question in. Should we take a look?
Yeah, let's kick off with that.
All right. Do you think Scrum Guide 2020 will get an update anytime soon, or is it perfect as it is? It's kind of a loaded question at the end. My opinion. So we have no. I want to be. There was a big LinkedIn blow up over some of this a little bit ago. I just want to be super clear. We do not have any special insights into this. We are not. We haven't talked to Ken. We don't. Scrum.org hasn't said anything. This is just pure speculation and opinion by Todd and I. Fair enough?
Yeah. Yep.
I don't think you're going to see anything new. I think Scrum Guide 2020 is in really good shape. I think a lot of people have finally, we're not even seeing people fully adopting product goals. We're not even seeing some training offerings teaching product goals, all the great things that it brought in. But I think it's in good shape. Yeah, Todd, I just can't see them really messing with it at this point. How about you?
Yeah, I think if I only had one gripe, because you're allowed to have a gripe, right? Is people tend to really have a difficult time understanding the increment.
Yeah.
And so if I had one thing to change about the Scrum Guide 2020 would be to maybe make that a little bit more clear. I know we have that issue a lot of times with people, especially outside of software development, Ryan. But other than that, yeah, we don't have any insights. We could be surprised. We don't know, but
I think, Todd, I think that's a good point, right? I do think that when they added the language, the moment a PBI meets the definition of done, an increment is born, I think that was a good step, right? Good movement in the right direction of clarifying. But yeah, that I'd have to agree with you. Increment's probably the one area that we still get lots of questions in class, lots of confusion. But yeah, I would predict, and so now that I say it, I'm going to be wrong, but I would say nothing in 2025.
Yeah.
But that's, again, Todd and Ryan speculation, pure guess,
It
no
could be
insight.
surprised. Yeah.
And if it is, we'll welcome it, and we will adapt our courses and hopefully get some benefit from some good changes. Actually, the other thing, Todd, I would put the immutability clause. I'm just going to I would add to the Scrum Guide, if you write a LinkedIn post about the immutability clause and complain about it, we're going to revoke all your licenses. I want that added to the Scrum Guide too.
Fair enough. Ryan, did you see I'm wearing my throwback Agile for Humans Beastie Boys shirt today?
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Rob has another one. Any new Scrum.org certifications coming in 2025? These are really good questions for Dave West. I think he's Dave at Scrum.org. I don't know. Todd and I, all we can do is speak to what we're doing at Agile for Humans, right? We are not working on any courses for Scrum.org as of right now. So the last one we helped with was the Professional Scrum Product Backlog Management Skills course. I think it went well. I'm not aware of any new ones. We are working through the evidence-based company on some evidence-based leadership offerings, some managing your career offerings. I think you're going to see some evidence-based, some kind of product offering. So I know we are working diligently on the next wave of courses that we think will be beneficial with the evidence-based company. But as far as Scrum.org, I don't know. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing. We don't want to speculate. We don't know.
Yeah. Will Seeley.
Hey, Will.
We should get Will in here.
Yeah. Little Will.
Lee, not sure if there's already an agenda for questions. Love to hear you guys' take on the Agile product operating model and how you see that impacting Agile in 2025. Wow, we could get in a lot of trouble with this question.
Yeah. So my take on it is, I've read quite a bit about it. We've heard some about it from Dave West at face-to-faces and the webinars that he has done and everything. There's some interesting things there. I guess my brain starts with evidence-based management, and as to where the Agile product operating model will go. I think it can help with CV, UV, strategic, and intermediate goals. So it'll be exciting to see what's happening with that as the future unfolds. Again, this is probably another case where I don't know if people were disappointed by hearing, but Ryan and I don't want to be speculative around it because we're not sure exactly where it's going to go. And maybe Scrum.org isn't. It's kind of an experiment, right?
Yeah. I think so. It's an interesting setup, right? So I think if you go check out the image and it shows what they're trying to do with it, I think it's an interesting setup. Now it's going to come down to definitions, right? And so what does it actually mean? And that's where I'm going to be interested. So Dave has done a lot of writing on it. There's some other pieces coming out. I think Todd and I certainly have an interpretation of what an Agile product operating model looks like. I'm actually a big fan of Melissa Perry and Marty Kagan, who have written extensively on this topic as well. And so it'll be interesting to see, while their materials are somewhat anti-Scrum, and hopefully we get a chance to talk to them in 2025. It'd be interesting to get their take. I might, if anyone knows Melissa or Marty, I would love to get their take on the Agile product operating model and some of their ideas about, some of their callback to waterfall as opposed to Scrum. And so all that's interesting. If I were the listeners out there, let me tell you what I'm doing. I've grabbed all of Melissa's books, all of Marty's books. I've been going through them diligently, highlighters and pens and taking a lot of notes. I'm really trying to figure out what the experts in this space believe about an agile product operating model. And I'm trying to take a look at what scrum.org has put together and then really look at, how do we make this a really good empirical model to discover, design, develop, and release product. And so I think there's going to be a lot of thought leadership work this year. I think there's going to be a lot of good discussion, a lot of good debate. I think there's going to be a lot of LinkedIn wars. Why is Scrum.org talking about product? Well, Scrum is a product delivery framework. That's why. And so I think it's appropriate for the space. And now it's just, how do we define this in a way that's usable? The one part that I really love that Dave added is that technology section. So when I was an executive in the Fortune 500, Todd, you've been in this situation too. Technology gets overlooked. Like, people don't realize that in an IT department, the executive leadership is really trying to figure out how do we take our runway to release and change that? How do we take our whole application landscape and shrink it? If you're running 300 applications to support a company, can we get it down to 10? Those considerations. And if I'm a product owner, if I'm a product manager, I think that's important. What's the cost of ownership? What does the application landscape look like? How do we shrink that to where support is simplified? And I think those are considerations that are missing in a lot of the literature and a lot of the books. And so I think there's some really fertile ground there to work with as well. And so I think it's an exciting opportunity. We're just going to have to figure out where this is going to land and how this is going to marry up with a lot of really good existing material from people like John Cutler, Marty Kagan, Melissa Perry, who are some of the other big product people, right? Bob Galen. I think Bob has a voice in this discussion as well. His product ownership book is probably the best, in my opinion, on the market. And so I hope this is a year of collaboration around this topic. I hope this is a year of experimentation in this space and that we get some really good traction. I don't know. Does that make sense, Todd?
Yeah. I think the reasons for it is there's still major problems in many organizations that we work with surrounding this stuff. That's why we lean so hard on evidence-based management.
Yep.
Because you start to ask simple questions like, what are you measuring? You start to ask questions that tend to be, for me, it's a little bit more complex, is what are your goals? A lot of organizations don't know, and they're still measuring the wrong things that are no indicator whatsoever of success of their products. And so maybe this will help to fill some of that vacuum.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, right? Like, I'll put the evidence-based management book up there. We're a big fan of evidence, right? Like, we are, and there might be a different interpretation, right? We might look at this model and say, no, EBM should be at the core. And maybe there's a different interpretation or a different lens to put on this. So we'll have to take a look. I think 2025 will be interesting in this space.
Mm-hmm.
So Rob has come up with an inflammatory question. Will Ryan cheer for the Eagles in the playoffs? As now it's clear the Chicago Bears are the typical Bears. I've ever since becoming good friends with Todd, I have become an Eagles fan. And when Jason Kelce last night said that during Monday Night Football that the Bears need to prove that they belong in the NFL, I wholeheartedly agree with him. So I'm a big Jalen Hurts fan. I think he's one of the most dynamic dudes in the NFL. I like the Eagles. So I say fly, Eagles, fly.
I like that. I was down at the game. I was texting you yesterday, Ryan. I was down at the game with my son. We have season tickets for the Eagles. I was down at the game with my son on Sunday, and he people were calling him Cooper DeJean. Then I sent Ryan a picture of Cooper DeJean, and he's like, I see the similarity. We're walking through the parking lot. Everybody's like screaming Cooper DeJean. 14-year-old son. It was pretty funny.
When do you get to tour the stadium?
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, tomorrow it's just me, and it's an exclusive event. Just me and a couple other people get to tour the stadium with Brent Selleck, which would be pretty fun.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear about that. So yes, Rob, I am deeply disappointed in the Bears. I wish the McCaskies would sell the team. I think, didn't the White Sox, they're getting sold, bad ownership. I think the McCaskies need to sell the team and just let the professionals jump in. And Todd was making fun of me for this, but I was really hoping Belichick would go to the Bears and not North Carolina. But it's painful, man. Yeah, I love my Bears, but I just wear an Urlacher jersey around the house and reminisce about how great Briggs and Urlacher were. But I don't know, Todd, maybe we should do a sports podcast too.
Yeah, we could go for quite a while about sports.
But yes, I say fly, Eagles, fly. I'm a big Kelsey fan. Yeah. Cleon says complexity is not well understood. Maybe the Scrum Guide could help with that. I think so too. It would be interesting to see. This is one where I've always wanted to talk to Dr. Snowden about complexity in Scrum and get his thoughts too. And see if there's a way that Kneffin makes sense of the complexity, the type of complexity Scrum's talking about. And so maybe we could get Dr. Snowden at some point and see if there's a good way to talk about complexity in a Scrum context that does not upset him. I think that could be an interesting conversation as well. But yeah, Cleon, I think you're right. Complexity is definitely difficult. Will thinks that for the Agile product operating model, it'll come down to case studies. I think he's right. Some good case studies will certainly help. Lee likes Marty's books. I agree. They are definitely very helpful. Will thinks that being Todd's friend will do strange things. Yeah. And we've got a Browns fan, so Lee is definitely feeling my pain. I like it. Very cool. Happy to take more questions. You got us for another at least 40, 45 minutes. We can also pull from YouTube if we need to grab some questions.
Yeah, I have one queued up. And this happened 5 days ago. I didn't respond to the comment yet. I'll put the username in here. There you go. I just threw it. Oh, I did not throw it into chat.
Well, here, I'll put it up.
There we go. You got it. Awesome.
So, what would you do if your organization is okay with work not being completed in the sprint, and it's a norm to carry over work from one sprint to the next sprint, and so forth? And there's some additional context. It's not because of blocks or impediments, because stories are resolved and need testing and peer review. Yeah, so this is a super common situation, right? Mm-hmm. This is one that it comes up quite a bit. People will say, well, we can't get all the testing done. We can't get all of the user acceptance test or reviews or acceptance or whatever it is, or the PMO has a process we have to follow, blah, 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 blah. Tough. Delivery's tough, And so what I've done in the past in these situations is I would take less work into the sprint after giving my definition of done a very thorough update. I have a feeling there's no definition of done here, actually. And so I would look and make sure our definition of done describes testing, it describes completedness, it describes releasable. And then we decide how much work can we pull into a sprint and get it to that done state, and then stick to that. And for a while, it's going to look a little weird, right? It's going to, you're not going to do as much, right? People are going to be frustrated, but you're not really getting things done as it is. You're getting things to almost done. And that's not valuable either, right? And so I think it comes down to committing to quality, revamping the definition of done, deciding to get to a releasable product, and then deciding that means we're going to pull in 3 stories instead of 12 into a sprint. I don't know, Todd, have I missed it? What this screams to me as is, and this notion has been buried for a long time, and it still exists in so many organizations. When I was working with our friends last week, Ryan, with a company that we've been doing some training and work for, they were surprised when I said that just because it's in your sprint backlog doesn't mean it's actually has to get done. This whole notion of how do you address this? This is something attached to this message. How do you address this and commit to what we planned? Right? This whole plan versus actual conversation. Yep.
It's I don't know how or what more we need to do to bury the fact that just because you brought it into a sprint backlog, it's not the commitment. That is not the commitment. right? The commitment added into Scrum Guide 2020, which we talked about a little bit before in the beginning of this, is a sprint goal. We know setting a singular sprint goal can be difficult, and especially if teams are working on multiple projects. But just because it's in your sprint backlog doesn't mean it's a commitment to work that you're going to get done. So this whole notion of commitment versus planned, right? So if it needs testing, it's not done. We're not just trying to get credit for product backlog items that we're getting done. We need to throw this notion away. We talked about complexity, maybe expanding the notion of complexity and how Scrum is used for complex projects could help this. But we often and so many times have talked about how creating a sprint backlog in sprint planning, that sprint backlog full of product backlog items in and of itself is not the commitment. It is not the commitment. So if you have 19 product backlog items planned for this sprint and you don't get 19 done, that is completely acceptable, right? You need to start using goals a bit better. We understand that there's difficulty in organizations for having a single objective, but this plan versus actual stuff, it is absolutely crushing organizations and teams, right? It's a metric that people are misusing. It's something that we're saying, is this team performing well? It's becoming a tad frustrating. And by the way, it's detracting from this whole product mindset, right? Product mindset isn't let's do as much work as fast as we possibly can and deliver it, because that usually means you're delivering junk. So I think this kind of smells of that a little bit, Ryan. Maybe my interpretation is a bit wrong.
No, I think that's a good readout on it too, right? But yeah, what gets me is this keeps happening, and I want to pull on a little bit of a thread that you brought up. What if it's just the team topology? What if we're just not structured as a team correctly to deliver? And no matter which framework or which idea we try, we don't have the right people working together to actually get to done. Mm-hmm. And so many times we'll point that out in organizations, and there's kind of like an angry pause, like, well, what do you mean? Like, no, we're doing things the right way. It's but you've got, a bunch of developers together, but no other skills that can help. Where's your DevOps? Where's your release? Where's your automated testers? Where's your, we don't, that's a different group. Cool. So those dependencies and handoffs and other issues lead to these problems of carryover work as well. So there's a lot of different causes here. I think between the two of us, we've hammered out quite a bit. Could be a goals issue. I see that in the comments here. Lots of different ideas there, but here's the thing about Scrum, right? Scrum will point this out very quickly, that there is a problem, and then the kicker of it is you got to decide to solve it, and if you don't, that's an issue.
Yeah.
All right, great question. Will is stirring the pot. It's been a while.
Surprise! Will stirring the pot.
It's been a while since my hugely controversial post about the manager being the Scrum Master. Has this view evolved given the current increase in focus on product? No. I would double down, triple down, quadruple down on this. I think if you are and this might be an area where Todd and I could disagree. I think if you are a Scrum Master, like a dedicated Scrum Master, you need to start looking at ways to get into leadership and management. I don't think the standalone Scrum Master is going to do it in the future. The authority problem has just constantly come up to where I'm sold on this idea that the delivery manager, a tech lead, someone who's given a bit of authority to solve problems in the organization, that's the person that I think should be fulfilling the Scrum Master accountabilities. So I'm going to continue to double down on this, even with all the LinkedIn wars and the blog post comments.
Yeah. And, I think that there's been a big shift in the market, in the Agile market, as we all know, right? Things are a little bit, let's say, I think it's fair to call it unstable right now, right? The question we've asked ourselves a lot is why, right? And to be honest, I think that you and I have talked about this extensively. And I think it could, and we wrote this in our book, it could be the failure of the Scrum Master, right? So you have a really great elaborate sprint retrospective, but your team has zero ability to innovate, right? They're having a very difficult time. They're struggling with effectiveness, right? Which equates to struggling to get anything into the market. And so we concentrate exclusively on that. Back to this whole metrics thing, plan versus actual. Well, the team's not delivering. So let's measure the one thing and incentivize them to get more stuff out of the door. And so great, we had awesome retrospectives and everybody's happy with them. But what about the rest of delivery? I think it might spawn from some of those things that we've seen in our industry here for a bit. And I think that having some supervisor authority in some regard, it doesn't have to be with that team, right? Is necessary to help that team become effective.
Yeah, this is one that so I see some other comments popping up about this. Someone saying horrible job or horrible idea. Look, I think the idea now is that I think the focus for 2025 with this particular topic is to start providing tools and ideas and guidance on how to do this, right? How can a manager shift to a servant leadership mindset, adopt the Scrum Master accountabilities, and lead in an agile minded way? And I think that is probably where a lot of my writing is going to drift to in 2025. I've got, I don't know if it's a book, but it's at least a number of blog posts about how the middle manager, the delivery manager, that leader can adopt the Scrum Master accountabilities and do it successfully. Part of, things that Todd and Will and I have developed is that managing your career. Part of the idea for that just was from my own practice, and I think Todd's practice as well, of just not like the one-on-one conversations with people that report to you. Those are brutal, very difficult to plan for, very difficult to execute well. And so we said, look, how do we give people a framework to manage their career that could also be used as a template for a one-on-one conversation or for the check-ins? And so I think more ideas like that will be coming out next year too, that support these people, these managers, as they try to take on the Scrum Master accountability. I don't see another way for this role to move forward. And I could be wrong. This is one where, the economy bounces back and budgets open up and everybody's fine again. I would be happy with that too. I just think this is a shift that needs to happen. Cool. Anything else there, Todd?
No, I don't think so right now.
Rob wants to know about the PSPO3. Any good resources come to mind? I studied, so I would grab 2 books. I think 2 books are really helpful. So Don McGrill and Ralph Jocum's product owner book in the Scrum.org series. I think it's a really good just refresher on the basics that you need to like just at a basic level, what you really have to understand to be a successful product owner. And I think Bob Galen's product ownership book, I think it's in the 3rd edition. It's on Amazon. I think you read those 2 books, you really think about, especially what Bob's book is, when his goes, it's more advanced. I think between those 2, I think if you spend a month on each one, but really studying them, and when you see something, Googling it and looking for follow-up posts and really putting in some deep work on them, I think PSPO3 is achievable. What do you think, Todd?
Yeah, all those things. PSPO3 too, I think it helps to have some good practical experience to be able to talk to your experiences in the trenches, both good and bad. When I took the PSPO3, I wrote in a whole bunch of things there that I did wrong as a product owner, right? So when it's approached like that, I think just keep studying and try again, right? The level 3 exams are meant to be difficult by design. So just keep working. I like the books that you mentioned, though, Ryan.
Yeah. And you know what? Honestly, those tests, a lot of people get bent out of shape that they don't pass it the first time. They're hard. It's a learning journey. Like I think those tests are the gold standard in certifications, in my opinion. I know Todd believes that too.
Mm-hmm.
I think sometimes you're supposed to have to take them, more than once. You know, it's a great learning experience, and so enjoy it, Rob, because once you pass it, it's like, oh, that one's done, and you got to move on to the next thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, look, Will is stirring the pot for Todd. So, Todd, we had conversations about Agile being output focused. So you did a very controversial thing that did not get the traction we thought it would. Like I don't think they understood the point. So you're basically saying Agile is for output, not outcomes. And so what Will wants to know is, with this current like Agile product operating model focus, is that a remedy, or is that more of the problem?
So, and so this is, I guess, for anybody that hasn't watched the video, I had this idea. Sometimes I drive Ryan nuts and Will nuts with these ideas that I get at like 3 o'clock in the morning. But what I wanted to do is I wanted to map in every Agile framework into evidence-based management to see what it was trying to speak of. And most of the Agile frameworks, methods, practices that we could put in fell under ability to innovate or time to market. And so we took a look at the broader picture of it and then mapped in the 12 principles. And although some apply to current value and unrealized value and goals, by a large part, most of them were applicable to evidence-based management and time to market. And then I thought to be able to further validate this idea would be to take it to a bunch of professional Scrum trainers, because they're really good at finding the nuance in anything. And so I presented it. Ryan and I were at a face-to-face up in Boston at Scrum.org headquarters. And everybody was like, yeah, right? Including Scrum, which we said that it primarily focuses on ability to innovate. And so where I thought that I was going to stir some controversy with it, people kind of looked at it and were like, yeah, all right, so what do we do? And I believe the hope would be that some of the stuff that we're talking about when it comes to a broader focus on product operating model will give some credence to how many organizations are focusing on ability to innovate and time to market rather than current value, meaning what are we currently doing for our customers, or satisfaction gaps, unrealized value. What are we trying to do that we aren't currently giving our customers? And then, of course, this big topic of goals, right? And our goals, as we often talk about, should be outcome oriented, meaning they're causing a positive change in customer behavior. Most of organizational goals are output oriented. Go do this thing, not explaining the why behind them. So maybe this current focus on product will help to remedy that, there is still a major need to focus on what is impeding our team from being effective, or what are we good at when we say we're effective, meaning ability to innovate, and then how quickly we're learning from these experiments and time to market. So it's not like those are not important things to measure and understand and focus on. But what gets lost in all of this is the product stuff. So perhaps that new focus on outcomes and product will give a balance to organizations that are sorely needing it. Long answer, a lot of rant there.
Well done. Well, thank you, Will, for stirring the pot again. Kimberly does not like the idea of a manager Scrum Master. I actually think a manager performing the Scrum Master accountabilities is the new stance of a manager. I don't think it's two separate things. I think a great manager actually leads in an almost an exact way. It's so close. Like a manager, when I was in middle management and I finally decided to be a Scrum Master to the team, not the manager of the team, I got promoted very quickly and the team loved it. I really think you can step into that mindset and into that stance and do wonderful things as a manager. They're not mutually exclusive. Rob likes the idea, forces leaders to actually, I think good things can happen. It's not the panacea. It's not going to solve every problem, but I think it can lead to good stuff.
Can I throw in one thing about this, Ryan?
Yeah.
The accountabilities were never meant to be job titles.
Agreed.
So you're fulfilling the accountability as a Scrum Master. That can mean you have a different position, right? That means you could be a developer on the team too. So the accountabilities have largely been interpreted as job titles. So I can understand how Kimberly's saying, how do you do both jobs at 100%?
Yep.
Right. Well, I think that the dynamics of what you're doing in the office environment has to change. So just remember, though, just because you're a manager or a developer doesn't mean that you need to inherit the job title as Scrum Master. The same thing happens quite a bit. Like, what's the difference between a product manager and a product owner? Product manager fulfills the accountabilities of a product owner and views things a little bit differently, right? So it's not meant to be a job title. The world's interpreted that. LinkedIn's interpreted that, and they become job titles.
HR interpreted that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, we got to have Scrum Master level 1, 2, and 3 so that we can pay them the least amount possible, but give them a promotion. And and it just the corporate engines, the gears turned and things got established that hopefully gets reimagined, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jacob asks, I think it's weird that the Scrum Master removes impediments and then all of their other responsibilities are on a meta level, coaching PO, devs, and org. I think it should move to the team. Do you agree? No. I think the product owner should be focused on product. I think developers should be focused on delivery and quality. And I think the Scrum Master should be focused on effectiveness. And that's what this coaching and teaching and training and mentoring and impediment removal and the implementation of evidence-based management and all the other things that great Scrum Masters are doing, that's their focus. And so if we put it all just on first of all, we give it collectively to the team, nobody owns it. And secondly, we're taking away from good product development activities and good software and from product ownership and from developers. We don't want to distract them. We want them focused on their thing. And in Scrum Master owns the effectiveness. And so that's where it should stay.
Yeah, if not them, who?
Love it. Todd said it much better and cleaner than I did.
Every now and then, Ryan. Every now and then.
Todd, I'm going to let you, not let you, I'm going to ask if you would take the lead on this one.
Sure. Recently had a director approach me about identifying a set of metrics for our Scrum Masters to be measured upon. Where do you start? This is a broader question, not just Scrum Masters, but how do you measure the success of a developer? How do you measure the success of a product owner? Even bigger than that, how do you measure the success of someone working in knowledge creative work? To be blunt, the answer is you really can't, right? So the thing that we are going to expect, you can't, and if you're working in a team environment. So when I'm saying that, we've done a lot of work around managing your career with evidence-based management. Like, how are you showing that you're adding value to the company? Most organizations are going to just say, the Scrum Master accountability, we don't know what they're outputting. So let's find some way to measure an output surrounding around them and have our performance reviews based around the output. What are you measuring the performance of a developer on? It's still the same archaic outputs that have been there in a lot of organizations, like number of bugs produced, that kind of thing. Where I would start with this is check out the stuff that we've done on managing your career with evidence-based management so that you can invoke a new and better conversation with your manager. So it doesn't necessarily have to be something that becomes managed by HR. That could be a sign of a deeper, broader organizational problem that you might be having if there's this desire to measure somebody based off of their output. But if you can sit down and you can say, here's how I'm effective. Here are the things that I'm doing and how quickly I'm doing them to help when it comes to the value of the company, the goals that were set. Like, have a better conversation around it. Not to sell you up on much here, Kevin, but we put a lot of free stuff out there. We have a career canvas. I think that's where I would start, is looking at that from an individualistic perspective. And then maybe that could be something that you bring to a manager and just say, these are the things that I'm working on to get better. And these are how they are in line with what our organizational strategy is.
Yeah, I think that that managing your career, that template or that canvas is just so good. Using that, then we're all kind of in agreement, right? How are we going to measure? What are we looking at? What are the goals? I think Yeah, we fall into this trap, right? What are the metrics? Wait a minute. What's the goal? Why is this person in the role that they're in? Why is this person a member of the team? What is the goal of this person over the course of whatever timeline? And then back into those metrics. And I think the canvas that we put together for managing your career does a really nice job. I think Todd and Will have really influenced this part heavily. Is what are the goals first? And then let's back into how we'll know that we've made good progress towards those goals. I think that's a very significant shift. We start too much but too much starts with the metric without understanding even the goal of why that person's even there. So no, I think that's a great recommendation, Todd. That canvas is a good start.
Yeah.
Let's see. Part of Scrum Master becoming managers is significant expansion in scope. Maybe. I'm not sure I agree with that, but it might. Could prevent meddling too much out of boredom, a desire to be helpful. I don't think managers do that on purpose. I was looking at I'm not going to name the book. I'm going to do a full review on the channel in a little bit, but some very good friends of ours released a book about value, and they kind of put up this straw man view of the manager being the dummy or the meddler. And I was a little disappointed because there's so much other good stuff in the book. I really hope in 2025 we get away from vilifying managers and leaders. I just think it's so inappropriate. You're never going to drive positive change by vilifying the people who hold all the keys.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fruitful.
I think that was one of our inspirations for developing the evidence-based leadership class.
Yep.
Is because largely all of the literature and things as it relates to Agile completely left them out. And so we would have managers in our Scrum Master classes or our product owner classes or our leadership classes, and it never really gave a guide or any ideas on how they could be a better manager using stuff like this. Now, I say that we don't consider evidence-based management to be something as it relates to Agile. We think it's something different. We think it's its own thing. But we directly wanted to address people in management positions to how they can use some information like this to help manage employees and then help to manage up, because there's a pressure cooker situation there oftentimes happening. And I think to Jacob's point here, when they start meddling, oftentimes is when they are being hounded to do so, right?
Oh yeah.
Otherwise, if everything's going okay, that's great. But then they start being asked, well, what are you doing if that team's operating, completely independently? So there's a lot of factors involved there.
Yep. Lee said the Scrum Master role is designed to provoke, but without empowerment, it's frustrating. That is one of the observations that's led to this change to the idea of a manager taking it over. Rather than the manager, maybe a technical Scrum Master. I'm not sure. It could work, right? I think there's a lot of possibilities here. When I went from software developer to project manager to Scrum Master, I was tempted to meddle a little too much. Like I still had some decent, right now I couldn't program. I would need 6 months to get back up to speed. So I'm no danger anymore. I'm not telling developers what I think is the best way to implement, database error handling. Like I'm not going to be able to do that right now. I get concerned that the lines get blurry. A Scrum Master, I found it hard to stop wanting to play in the tech. And I think these lines get a little blurred, but it could be right. That could be helpful too. Rob Caught Me. I love that book. Cal Newport, that if you have not read Deep Work by Cal Newport, I think it's one of the most important books about just how to think. Just such a really, really good book. He caught me. I love this question. Claudia, it's great to see you here. As a longtime Agile practitioner, what new skills might we need to acquire in 2025 to continue evolving in our IT fields? Wonderful question. What do you think, Todd?
Obviously, this is a little bit of a biased answer. I would really explore evidence-based management. The reason why I'm so passionate about it is I've worked with evidence-based management for many years now, It's starting to get some traction, which makes me super happy. And it is a game-changing thing to open the new door for conversations. I'm obviously going to always recommend that if you don't have any tech skills, why not get them, right? Why not just, not that you have to turn into a coder, but why not have them? I also think, I'm going on all kinds of rants here, Ryan. I also think learning how to leverage artificial intelligence is interesting here. Just something as simple as last week, Ryan, I was running a product owner class and asked everybody why their organizations are doing Agile. I exported their answers and tried to do a sentiment analysis around it using ChatGPT, and then asked it to generate a word cloud. So it summarized answers for things like that. You can use it to look for patterns and data and things like that. I think that there's a lot there. I think there's a lot of opportunity in 2025 to expand skill sets. And one last thing before, Ryan, I'll let you go too. I know you have some thoughts here. Is sometimes the things that you do to acquire new skills don't have to directly relate to your career. Find a new hobby, do something outside of work. It just improves your abilities, brain to function. So I am always seeking and doing new things. And I think that also helps to change the way that you think and bring it into the office as well.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. I think one of the best developers that I ever worked with was a music major. It was just these tangential skills that just get your brain. I think keeping your brain young is really important. Just trying to make sure we're still thinking clearly. We're trying new ideas. We're bending our brains a bit. During COVID, I went back to school and got a master's degree in theology. Not really. I mean, definitely servant leadership related, but not software or product development related. But it taught me a lot about myself. It taught me how to think a little better. It seriously improved my analytical skills. I mean, it's stuff like that. Todd went and got his level 2 CrossFit coaching cert, and a lot of that was practical. And I remember him coming back and talking about how some of the adjustments in the way that those coaches were I don't know, dare I say, corrected Todd a little bit, or worked with him. I remember you saying that had an influence on you, that it kind of gave you some better cues and some better ways to kind of reflect on how to correct people. And so I think there's all these opportunities out there to pursue your interests, but also it can help your skill set as well. I've been playing with Claude a little bit, doing some software development with AI assistants. I think that's kind of interesting. I think a lot of this stuff is gimmicky. I'm not sure ChatGPT and Claude and all these are going to change the world. I think they certainly have some assistive qualities that we should certainly look into. I think the big skill set, now that I'm done rambling, I bought myself some time to think. I think it's a very old school. The two things I think we should get really, really good at that I think most people have gotten horrible at. One is reading. Read one book a month. Grab Bob Galen's product book and read it this month. Grab the evidence-based management book next month and read it in January. I think we're going to do a second edition of Fixing Your Scrum. I hope it's out sometime next year. Grab that and read that another month. Read one book a month, a high quality book, right? And get really good at reading a book. There's actually a skill to it. Go through it slowly, take notes on the pages, write your own index to the book, highlight the things that you want to go back and look at. Like, really, I think those two skills, reading and then writing. And once you've read a chapter, write a blog post, not copying the chapter, but your own spin on it, your own insights. I think just getting better at communication, reading and writing, that seems to be lost. There's not really a lot of good long form blog posting anymore. The articles have become pithy little tweets. I think those skills are going to be huge. I think they're going to make a comeback. So, but yeah, maybe I'm crazy, Ty, but reading and writing
stands the test of time, Ryan.
Could be some good things there. Eric says in dynamic shared ownership, a manager is basically an SM. So, Eric, I have no idea what dynamic shared ownership is, but I'm curious. If you drop a link, I'll check it out. Kimberly might be coming around a little bit. It's okay. You know what though, Kimberly? It's very possible that that we're wrong. We could be completely wrong about this manager thing. So try to continue to coach up so that managers need coaching. Absolutely. When I was a director and manager in companies, I had coaching. I sought out coaches. I keep mentioning Bob Galen. He is someone who I spoke with extensively about new situations, and he really formed. Bob was very formative in my thinking about leadership and management, and so I highly recommend all of his books. Get on his Agile Moose newsletter. He writes a lot of great things. Bob was, whether he knew it or not, a significant coach throughout portions of my career. I think Jerry Weinberg's work. Jerry is no longer with us, but his 100 books that he left behind are excellent. I think Are Your Lights On? Secrets of Consulting, beautiful things to dig into. So Kimberly, I wholeheartedly agree. Managers need coaching just as much as anyone else. Looking along.
A good idea here. If I can, I don't know if I click on this, if it's going to show.
Yeah.
Talking about flow a little bit in regards to some of the things we were talking about from an evidence-based management perspective. We wholeheartedly love those metrics and the idea behind definitional workflow and everything as it relates to Kanban, and how that can absolutely help a team with their effectiveness, with their time to market. The interesting thing about it, though, is, I shouldn't say though, because it makes me sound like I'm going to talk negative of it. A team's definition of workflow could really impact how you view the broader landscape of things. Meaning, if the definition of workflow is we're validating it in production to see if people are using it, that's awesome, right? A lot of teams are not there yet. A team's definition of workflow is about the work and how they're getting it done, but there isn't a aspect of their workflow that says, is the product owner going out? Now, there isn't a product owner in Kanban, but is the person, product management, going out and making sure that that thing is being used or filled a satisfaction gap? So we love all that stuff. We think that that also belongs. There's a lot of stuff that you can use given any context. And I think that that could absolutely help determine how effective a team is. But it really is dependent on how far you can go with it based off of a definition of workflow. Ultimately, from a Scrum Master's vantage point, effectiveness of the developers and them delivering as compared to effectiveness of the product owner and the customer being satisfied, there's a big landscape of stuff out there. So definition of workflow plays a big role in that.
How did Agile for Humans begin, and what has kept you real to helping others? How do you measure that help? Let's see. Back in January of 2000, Todd and I formed Agile for Humans. Prior to that, it was a long-standing. 2020.
Yeah.
Prior to that, it was a long-standing podcast. It was really. It began in an airport bar with two delayed flights, and I think of the movie Step Brothers, where it's like, did we just become best friends? And it's like, all right, yeah, let's go write a book.
Karate in the garage.
Yeah, we karate in the garage, and there's a lot of room for activities in our office. So, yeah, it was really a haphazard. I don't know. Certainly some divine intervention and good beer. So, yeah. And then how do we measure that? It's difficult, right? So we, when we're working with clients, we're very specific with them about trying to collect impact and trying to work through. We don't just want to train and cash checks and move on, right? We actually want our work to have a lasting impact. And so we do spend a lot of time with our clients talking through what that looks like and trying to measure towards that. It's different for every client. And their needs are different. But as far as keeping it real, we try not to get too big of heads about things. Like And we try to be pretty, like Fixing Your Scrum, I think was such a good book for us to write because we basically had to expose the fact that we've screwed up almost everything you can screw up with Scrum. And so if we start getting, too egotistical or too arrogant or inflated egos or whatever it is, we can just crack open that book and go, oh, look, I made this mistake and I made that mistake. And so we just try to keep grounded in the fact that no one is perfect. No one knows everything. And all we're really trying to do is help people do a little better. The measurement of that over a number of years is there's tons of factors that show up on our EBM chart. I think one of them is longevity. Trainers and companies that survived this past 18 months have had to have brought some value, or else, it's just bad news. I think the YouTube feedback, I think there's just so many different little measures that we can look at that.
Yeah, I think a good example of that for how we use evidence-based management, let's say. So back sometime, I think it was even prior to 2020, when Ryan and I started talking about creating a YouTube channel. Ryan had the idea of your daily Scrum, a daily show that we would do. But at that point, how many subs were there? Like 19? You had posted a couple things there before we had kind of decided to work it. So what we were talking about is there's a satisfaction gap out in the world. There's a potential for unrealized value to give people free information about common Scrum anti-patterns, just Agile knowledge, things like that. Now we consider that to be current value. So if we go to our YouTube channel and we look at the analytics there, currently we have, I think, close to 25,000 subs, 24,676 subs at the time of this recording, or this, whatever we're talking about here. So that shows that we have an engaged community on YouTube. Now that's one aspect of it, because we also have students that we teach. We also have people that we consult for, right? And so as Brian mentioned, like the consulting is very individualistic. How do we make sure that this company is being successful? That's very specific to a client. For students that we teach, we can look at arbitrary things like what were their exam scores. We do an NPS at the end of every class on a scale of 1 to 10. How was this training? So
we also track very extensively, Todd, and Todd did a ton of work on this over the last few years. Repeat students, like how many? I think one of the biggest measures a training company like ours could look at, and this was Todd's insight, is how many students come back for that second and third course. And that was a big one we looked at too. But sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I thought you did some really great work there, and it really gave us some insights on it actually showed us some needed improvement areas too.
Yeah, and we had some failed experiments in there trying to see how we could engage people outside of class and things like that. So that wouldn't be our only point of contact, or how we could create communities. That didn't necessarily work, but just some insights on how we use evidence-based management and things that we measure.
Cool. As we wind this down, Claudia is going to study art history. I mean, it could lead to a breakthrough or an insight, right? If that's, I love art history. I think that could be fun. Eric gave a link. I'm going to check that out, Eric. I appreciate you. I'll see what dynamic shared ownership is. Lee, we're going to do some product-based courses. I think we're going to continue to build out the managing your career offerings. I think that's an interesting, there's going to be I think there's so many applications for that. So stay tuned to our YouTube space. There might be some more EBM items coming out of there as well. I think we'll wrap up with Rob's inflammatory question. Do you think that all the Agile is dead LinkedIn posts are just a cry for help for people that don't know how to actually run Scrum properly? Agile is dead. So a little context here. So Scrum is over 20 years old. And I think after the first couple of years it was out, you can find Agile is dead posts that are 18, 19, 20 years old. I know Dave Thomas of the Pragmatic Company wrote one. Happy holidays to you too, Kimberly. Thank you.
Yeah, happy holidays.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all the good stuff. And thanks for being here, and thanks for challenging us. That was we love the pushback, we love the discussion. As far as the Agile is dead, this goes back 20 years. And it seems like every 4 or 5 years, there's a hiccup in the economy, something globally like a pandemic might happen. Um, Elections happen, um, all sorts of things that can cause some unrest, or some disruption, and and then this panic flare goes up that Agile is dead. And I don't think the need to inspect, adapt, respond to the market, be opportunistic in product delivery, I don't think any of the things that we are teaching and training and promoting will ever not be needed. The packaging might look different. So will Agile be around forever? Probably not. Right. But are the principles and the values and the ideals and all of those great things behind it, will those always be needed? Yeah. I mean, from bartering to from the old bartering system to currency to these things have always been needed. Like responding to complexity is from day one, right? And so early in, years ago, the methods to respond to complexity were crude. I think our tools are getting better. And so no, I see this as, I'll be honest. I'll just be honest. I think our industry got flooded. Todd and I noticed this probably 3 years ago when we started getting emails from people saying, "Hey, I'm in real estate right now, but this Scrum Master thing looks like it's taken off, and I want to become eventually a trainer and make so much more money." And we would start talking to them and say, "Well, what projects have you worked on? What software have you delivered?" And say, "Oh, I've never been on a team before." And it was just, and I know, I think we were in one of the hotels and we were sitting at the bar going, "We're in trouble." Like when that group starts flooding into a profession, bad things start happening. It's not the people's fault. Look, people are going to where the opportunity is. I get it. But when that level of flooding happens, and then markets get tight, budgets get cut, there's this constriction that happens that leads to this panic. And so I think we saw a lot of that too. And you saw a lot of people kind of get kind of that wake up call that, wow, I've never worked in a product development organization and times are tough and I'm getting cut. I think those people can work really hard. I think they can be successful in this career path, but it's not as easy as it used to be. I don't know, Todd, I'm trying to say this delicately. Am I doing all right?
Yeah. Fact of the matter is organizations still need help with product delivery.
Absolutely.
And we've had a lot of success using Scrum. We've had success using Kanban. We've had success with evidence-based management. We've been Scrum Masters, product owners, leaders, and organizations did not just overnight get really good at delivery. Yep. And this is what bothers me a lot of the time. I complain about it, Ryan. I'm like, sometimes I just feel like we get into these organizations and we've gotten nowhere. Like, what are we doing wrong that we can't solve this problem? And a lot of the same problems still exist. Have they gotten a little bit better since Agile? I think so. Yes. But a little bit. There's still a long way to go.
Yeah, I think the reports of Agile's death are greatly exaggerated.
It's good clickbait too. Good clickbait.
Well, I think the last thing I'll say about this is that LinkedIn is not a real place. It's not. And Todd has actually been coaching me. I will say flat out, Todd has been coaching me on this for a few years now. Like, LinkedIn is not a real place. It's clickbait. It's inflammatory. The more that people argue, the better the algorithm responds. And so you now have like Agile LinkedIn influencers that are trying to drum things. And it just, for me, it's just, I have to detox it.
Yeah.
Like, I've taken LinkedIn off my phone. I've taken Facebook off my phone. For me, it's just, I want to get in there and argue and say, no, Agile is great and Scrum is vibrant and it's a wonderful, and then I realize, oh, I got sucked into a troll trap. Right. So I think part of it too is just shutting this stuff off for a while. Like, go read a good book, go to a local meetup, get on a Zoom call with 10 other practitioners, have meaningful discussion, and don't get sucked into social media algorithms that reward these kind of detrimental posts too. So I don't know, maybe that's a little extreme, but LinkedIn is not a real place. Agile is not dead, and it is thriving. It's flourishing. And I think in 2025, you're going to see, I think, more demand for evidence, more demand for proving value, and that's good, right? EBM will flourish there. OKRs could flourish there. I think that is the push. And so if you want to know the skill set to learn how to validate value. I think that could be pretty awesome as well. Cool. Well, I think we hit the time box. We're seeing a lot of happy holidays. We want to wish everybody Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate. We hope you celebrate with family in a loving and joyful way. We'll see you back in 2025. We're excited about what's going to be coming. We've got offerings of our own. I'm sure people are going to be coming out with great things as well. It should be awesome. So thanks for joining us. And we hope to see you all again soon.
Yeah. Cheers. Happy holidays.